Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to bring the Greater Clark County School Board of Trustee meeting to order. It is May 27th, 2025. Thank you all very much for coming out. If you all would please stand with me to say the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Ms. Markowski, all board members are present. I would at this time like to approve the agenda as presented. Board, could I have a second for that?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Ms. Hutchinson. Do we have any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay. The next item on the agenda would be public comments on the agenda items.
You should, but I do not see them.
Hearing none, we'll move right along. Goal Strategies Major Fund Monitoring Report. Ms. Hubringer, how are you today?
Great, Mr. President,
Good.
Board. This evening I come to you with the April numbers. Now that we're going to have 2 meetings a month, we'll be able to catch up in June with May and then July with June. So completing April 30th, you will see our ending balance is reflective in the education fund of $18,585,000. Mind you that we have by law required to transfer textbook rental funds into that fund, as well as we have not done our transfers, which occur in June and December. So last year we were at 16 million if we looked at those factors. The operations fund ending balance is 858,504. Last year it was negative 470,000. Remember, we do allow this fund to go into the hole when we receive our all of our funds in June. I will make a transfer then, as well as I make the final transfer for the year in December as required. Debt service, a $5.3 million balance, and rainy day at $12 million. Again, this district has done a great job of protecting the funds for what we will know as new legislation coming through to see us through those times. So if there's any questions, I'll be happy to answer those.
Okay. Any questions or comments? Ms. Hubringer, are you sure? Okay.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Okay. Now we would move to the consent agenda. Board, do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Ms. Perkins. Any questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed and abstaining?
Before you move on, Mr. Belkwalter, I want to announce a couple people that are on the personnel report that I'd like to recognize. The first one being Mr. A.J. Moye, who will be our new athletic director at Jeffersonville High School. Congratulations. Welcome. AJ has an extensive background as a player at IU for 4 years, but also as an assistant coach at the Division I level. Has had numerous athletic experiences throughout his lifetime so far, so we're very happy to have him at Jeff High. And also Michael Fitzgerald will be the assistant AD there at Jeffersonville High School. Congratulations. Welcome aboard.
Would you like to say anything, gentlemen?
I'm excited. I can't wait. So thank you all. Very much looking forward to the conversation.
Likewise, just like Mike, I'm just super ecstatic. Just very, I'm kind of chomping at the bit, Sharon, to tell you, but I can't wait to get there. Just go over a brief SWOT analysis, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, threats, really dive into it, really see how it works, and can't wait to just get after it, and just want to be a servant and be as helpful as I can.
Awesome.
Welcome.
Thank you very much. I'm assuming they didn't tell you about the long hours and all that. That's all I can say for me. No, I'm glad, and thank you all.
Bus duty.
Yeah, thank you all very much for taking Greater Clark. You've going to do us well, I'm sure. Okay, next item would be gifts to building.
I am totally ready for that. We had a very short one. I do want to point out Clark County Jail Commissionary Fund donations for 6th grade pirate preview shirts, $19.50. And of course, we've started collecting for the Nick Weiss Scholarship Fund. I move that we accept these gifts to buildings in the amount of $2,540.
Awesome. Board, do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Ms. Crump. Any questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed and abstaining. Okay, at this point, we will have our public hearing. Greater Clark is required to hold a public hearing for the 1028 and preliminary determination hearing. If you desire to comment after the presentation, you should do the following. Once you're instructed, the comments can be made. And
Well, before we get going with that, I wanted to say a few words.
Okay.
But go ahead and finish
Okay,
the first part there. if you-
Yeah, and if you desire to comment, you'll just raise your hand. When recognized, come forward to the podium, state your name and address for the record, please, and provide your comments. You'll have 3 minutes to speak, and we look forward to hearing from you.
And Board, I certainly won't speak for 20 minutes like I did the last meeting on the history of what we've been trying to do the last 5 or 6 years in terms of where we've been, where we're at, and where we're trying to go. But I think when you look at this project and this hearing and the need in terms of what we're going to run into out at Charlestown, with the growth, and the growth out there is undeniable, we certainly need to look at adding classrooms at Charlestown High School. And that's what this project does, it's what this hearing does. When you look at just 6.5 years ago, I was the principal out there. The enrollment out there when I was principal from year to year was typically 725 to 730 students. The projected enrollment for next year at Charlestown High School is 930. Okay, so what's the next 5 years going to bring at Charlestown High School? We expect that number to go well over 1,000, and over the next 7, 8, 9 years, it'll probably be closer to 1,200 or 1,300 high school students out there in that area. Now, a lot of questions about, well, what's the current Charlestown High School capacity? Okay, when I was out there, I was told by the architects the current capacity of that school is somewhere between 950, 975. Okay, so we're approaching the capacity of that building. So something will need to be done over the next few years because of the growth. I talked about it at the last meeting. I met with Treva Hodges, the mayor of Charlestown. She explained to me, along with Tony Jackson, who's the building commissioner out there, that there's already over 1,500 homes and apartments that are platted, approved, or under construction right now. And I talked about last meeting, the National Home Builders Association says that for every 100 homes, typically that produces 41 student-age children. Apartments are more than that, usually around 50 kids for every 100 apartments. So when you think about that, and then you look at, all right, we're in a school choice environment. Let's say Greater Clark gets about 90% of those kids that are new from those homes and apartments. You're talking about 600 to 700 school-age children more over the next 5, 6, 7 years out there. So there's going to be significant growth. And that's just the homes and apartments that have been platted and approved. We know that there's plenty of open land out there, and there's going to be more. Mayor Hodges told me that there's already discussions going on about different properties out there being sold, developed, platted, and all that. So it's going to happen. When you look at the Charlestown Pike expansion, there's going to be more homes through there. What I've been told by the mayor of Jeffersonville and also the mayor of Charlestown, that between Jeffersonville, basically the roundabouts out to Charlestown, there's over 4,000 homes platted, approved, and ready for construction or already being built. So there is a need out there. And I will say, just to speak to what we've done so far, we've followed our plan that we set forth 5 years ago, our facility plan. We're building 3 new elementaries that are replacing 5 of our oldest buildings. To me, that's smart planning. All those buildings are 60, 70 years old. The River Ridge project, we just had the groundbreaking for. That's short-term, that's going to replace Parkview Middle School. Long-term, we'll see at some point we're going to have to do something at the Parkview site, and the district has pledged to do that, and that will happen eventually. But we're replacing buildings that are 60, 70 years old that are very expensive to keep up and maintain and fix. So I don't think we've done anything out of line. When you look at the only real addition to our portfolio of buildings is Founders Point Elementary when that's built. That's the only new addition. And even with the addition of Founders Point Elementary, when it's built, we'll still have fewer buildings than we had 5 years ago. Okay, so we're trying to consolidate, trying to do the right thing in terms of being efficient as a district and still maintain space for all the growth that's going on in Jeffersonville, Charlestown, and out that way. So once again, I think the other question, and this will be the last thing I say, is, well, why aren't you doing a referendum versus doing it the way we're trying to do it? Well, I've said this over and over again, and we saw our neighbors to the west, experience this. A referendum goes outside the tax caps. If a referendum's passed, it goes outside the tax caps, and everybody has to pay. Okay? Probably 50 to 60% of our homeowners are at the tax cap. If we passed a referendum, that cost would be paid out by all taxpayers, whether you're at the tax cap or not. The way we're doing this, okay, is not going to impact those people. Okay, we don't want to negatively impact the property taxpayer. That's why we're doing it this way. A referendum would negatively impact everyone. And I think it's important to note that. We can get this done without negatively impacting the taxpayer. It's what we've done the last 5 years. So with that being said, I won't talk any longer. And
Okay, before I bring up our speaker, Thomas Peterson, I want to reiterate what we've gone through. Meetings of Greater Clark County School Board of Education are held for the public purpose of conducting the school corporation business. The meeting is not to be considered a public community meeting, okay? Understand that. These meetings were not held for the purpose of debate or issues with the public. The board enjoys hearing the views of the constituents on issues and its considerations. However, if the goal in addressing the board during the citizens' comments portion of the meeting is to encourage the board to act on an item that's not here, we're not up for a vote, please understand that no action will be taken, so there's no sense in even communicating. Also, it's not relevant, so be as polite as you can. I understand that this is a tension, there's a tension in this, and but don't call out individuals by name. Also, finger pointing accusations, things of that nature are not going to be tolerated. Don't use language that could be interpreted as demeaning. As the elected board president, I'd like to say this. I've been entrusted to run these meetings per state board policy, and I've always done just that. I will consider any comment deviating from this instruction an act of defiance, and you will now be considered trespassing on Greater Clark County Schools property. I will then ask the officer here present to remove you. So I don't mean to be downer about this, but I just want to be clear that we're just simply trying to hear what you had to say, and we respect what you had to say. But I know there's been a lot of things that have, been kind of tough for both of us. So at this time, sorry to hurt your introduction, but yeah, I'd like to bring up Thomas Peterson.
I normally have a pretty good one-liner to start with, but you just got me there.
I'm
the
sorry.
point of tonight's public hearing is actually 4 parts. The first is what's called a 1028, and the reason why it's called that is because it was House Bill 1028 that introduced this requirement, and that is to set up a definition of what the project is going to be. The second part of the hearing, and this all happens at the same time because it's all the same subject matter, is what's called a preliminary determination hearing. We had the first one of these on May 13th. This is the second as required by the Indiana law, and that is to set out the financial parameters of what the project and the financing would cost. The third is authorizing the execution of an amendment to lease agreement to finance the project. And I want to take a moment to explain the structure of how Indiana's school finance works. You're limited by state law, all schools are, for direct bonds of 1/3 of 2% of your net assessed value, which is a very small number, and particularly for a school district that has as many buildings as you do, an extremely small number. What the Indiana Supreme Court approved probably about 70 years ago is the use of a building corporation, which is a corporation that is created solely for the benefit of doing financings with their related school corporation. And that building corporation will legally own the facility and then lease it back for the exclusive use of the school corporation. That lease will then be tied for lease rentals to what it takes to pay debt service on the bonds that the building corporation issues to finance the construction, the renovation of the project. So the structure is the building corporation is the one who actually issues the bonds, but the school corporation will pay lease rentals for that facility that equal the debt service on the bonds of the building corporation. Now again, the thing to realize, the building corporation operates without profit. It operates solely for this benefit and is required by the term of the lease to return the property to the school corporation once the bonds are retired. So this is a financing mechanism that has been approved by the Indiana Supreme Court and has been structured by the Indiana General Assembly. Now, if we're talking also about debt, the other point that I'd like to make and take a moment of privilege here, when it comes to larger school projects, the General Assembly has only provided school corporations one mechanism to finance those, and that's doing a building corporation bond issue. A school corporation is not allowed to save money over the years and establish a construction fund to then pay cash for a facility. If a school corporation is able to save money, and I'm just going to use fantasy numbers. Let's say your levy's $1 million, your budget's $1 million, but you're able to save $200,000. The state that approves the levy tax rates will look at that and say, well, the next year you only need $800,000 because you have $200 on hand. So they will take away any savings that you create and put that towards the general operating that you have, that you raise your levies for. Not able at all for you to create a cumulative fund to then finance these projects by cash. There used to be, back in the 60s, there was something called the Cumulative Building Fund, where you could stockpile these monies. It no longer exists. It's not where the tax levies go. The other thing that they have done that makes it even harder to do that is it used to be that every one of the levies, you carried forward 7 months worth of revenue in that levy, because that way you could pay for the next 6 months till the next property tax distribution. Now that has been knocked down to 15%. Yes, 15% of the budget instead of close to 60 is what you can have as a carry forward amount. Again, taking away any funds or cash that the school corporation might have to apply towards a building project. I guess in some ways, I attend these meetings all around the state. I work with the statute, I work with school corporations. And sometimes, unless the project is a question of need, the real place I think we all should be making our direct concerns made is with the General Assembly, who's just created these rules as to how schools can finance projects. Because right now, the only way that it can be done is doing it with a building corporation bond issue. And that's just the way, the structure that we have to work with. So with that background as to what the points of the public hearing are about, Mr. President, I would recommend you open it to anyone who would like to make comments or ask questions. Or actually, Matt is here to refresh what the financial parameters are, so we can make sure we're all talking about the same thing.
Okay.
Did you get last board meeting, right?
Yes.
Okay, give me 1 second.
Well, while you're doing that, I'll add a little more in terms of what I was going to say, but didn't say it. I think one of the things I wanted to respond to too is, the question of, well, how can you as a district do these projects without negatively impacting the taxpayer? Well, over the last 5 to 6 years in Greater Clark's Attendance District, the assessed value, and I'm talking about not assessed value of existing homes going up. I'm talking about assessed value from new homes, new apartments. Over the last 5 to 6 years, our assessed value has gone up almost a little over $1 billion. Okay, and that's new homes, new apartments, those type of things. When you look at the potential of over 4,000 more new residents over the next 5 to 7 years, well, that's almost another $1 billion increase in assessed value. Okay, the reason we've been able to do this is because 5 or 6 years ago, we came up with a really solid plan, and we've followed that plan. And we've stayed disciplined to that plan. And we haven't deviated from that plan. And that's how we've done this. Okay, and I want to be very clear in regards to that point. Go ahead, Matt.
All right, thank you. Great to see you again. So we went over these numbers 2 weeks ago. I'll go through them again tonight, and then happy to answer any questions. Renee, if you want to go to the next page. So these are the parameters that you're going to see in your resolution tonight. Maximum par amount of the bonds, $50 million. As we talked about each and every time, this is a not to exceed number. You can borrow any number up to 50 million. You cannot borrow more than 50 million. Estimated maximum interest rate. Again, this is very conservative. We listed at 7%. We sold a comparable bond issue today, just over 4%. We're obviously not selling these bonds today. Interest rates have been going up. They've been going down. They've been going all over the place. We don't know what things are going to look like in the future. And given we paint worst case financial parameters on this page and in the resolution, we've listed that at 7%. Borrowing $50 million at 7% comes out to a total interest cost of $43,301,145. Again, if and when these bonds are issued, hopefully at a much lower interest rate, that number should come down significantly. Maximum annual lease payment, this is the highest amount that you can pay in any 1 year. That's listed at $15 million. The current debt service levy for pay 2025, the current budget year, is at $33,217,421. That equates to a debt service tax rate of 0.6874 or 68.74 cents per $100 of assessed value. Projected 26 debt service levy, this would be next budget year, is at $35,387,254. That's an estimated debt service tax rate in 2026 of 0.6974 or 69.74 cents, or 69.74 per $100 of assessed value, excuse me. Maximum tax rate impact, again, we've talked about this a ton of times. This simply takes the $15 million, the maximum payment you can have in any 1 year, divides it by the current assessed value. That's listed at 0.3104. Mark already mentioned this. Policy Analytics has done a parcel by parcel analysis of your tax base. We know the majority of your homeowners are at their tax caps because this is not being done through a referendum. All of those taxpayers that are at their tax caps are not going to pay any more because of this project. Last two pieces of information we have to have in here per statute. The school corporation's max annual payments as a percent of the net assessed value is 9.15%, and then the direct and overlapping debt as a percent of NAV, that's your debt and all the other units' debts, is at 10.12%. That's all I have in terms of the numbers, but again, happy to answer any questions or clarify anything that I said.
Board, we good? It's the second time we've heard it, or third or fourth? Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. President, before we open up, I just want to check with the board. Does anyone have any other questions about the role of the building corporation or why this is being described as a lease by the school? Anything else?
No, I'm understanding. Board, are you good?
I'm good.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Peterson. Okay, at this time, if you wish to speak, you can raise your hand. When you're recognized, come forward to the podium. State for your name for the record and your address, and provide your comments, and you will have 3 minutes to speak. So at this time, who would like to speak? Yes, ma'am.
Alice Butler, 1773 Summerlin Place. I was at your meeting in 2020 at the Fetter Center when you presented your original 5-year plan. You promised that as long as you were superintendent, the tax rate would never go above $1.10. You said you would resign if it did. You said the maximum debt you could conservatively add was $175 million to maintain the $1.10 rate. Well, we have far exceeded the $175 million, and today's debt is unsustainable at the promised 110. Since 2020, you've added bond after bond until the one today will bring the total to $740.6 million. And you want us to believe the tax rate will remain at $1.10. You approved $108 million in September and another $59 million in December. Now you want to add $50 million more, a total of $218 million in just 8 months' time. Why? Why do you need to rush the first 3 years of your 5-year plan into just 8 months? It's because you're not required to initiate a referendum as long as the debt you plan to incur is estimated to be at or below the existing tax rate. Therefore, you have to hurry up and get all these projects approved because, as you stated in your January workshop, you know the rate is going up. But you don't want to tell the public that. You want to deceive us and put us in a massive amount of debt and then tell us it's not your fault the rate is rising. You want to blame it on the legislature or the assessor or whoever, but certainly not yourselves. Once this $50 million is approved, the remaining 2 years of your 5-year plan only includes one item that could trigger a referendum, and that's the renovation of Parkview. At your January workshop, it was clear you preferred to demolish Parkview and, I believe, not replace it. That was just a ruse to make the downtown people and city council believe you would do the right thing. Let's be honest, all Parkview kids will be bused to River Ridge and they won't be returning. As one board member said, quote, if they all go to the new school and they all like it and they get over all that crap about having to be downtown, unquote, then Parkview won't return. Once River Ridge is open, if you decide to replace or renovate Parkview, it would likely require another tax increase and a referendum. But like Silver Creek, it would fail. So either way, Parkview is gone. People are tired of all this construction, tired of the closing of our neighborhood schools, tired of building gigantic schools that resemble prisons. We're tired of academics taking a back seat to fancy new buildings and sports complexes, tired of the massive debt, tired of the lies. It is time to say no to this $50 million bond issue and time to stop the elementary on Salem Noble. It is time for this school board to do what's right or resign. Our homes are not your piggy banks.
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Hello, my name is Caitlin Blessett, Clark County resident,
And your address, please?
320 Mary Street,
Okay.
Jeffersonville, Indiana, 47130.
Yes,
Just let me
ma'am.
know when my time is starting. Okay. Okay. In my opinion, this school board is completely out of control with its debt, and now asking for another $50 million. More debt 2 to 3 years ahead of schedule for this project. I find that highly suspicious. And the way you're doing it, although you have found a legal loophole, is completely unconstitutional. Article 13 of the Indiana Constitution clearly states a municipal corporation shall not exceed 2% of the value of the taxable property and debt, and all bonds or obligations in excess of such amount shall be void. Greater Clark County has far exceeded this 2% law at $690.6 million in outstanding debt. This is higher than nearly every other school district in the state. You will never convince me that this level of debt is necessary. The constitutional protection stands to prevent the exact situation we find ourselves in: excessive and endless debt cycles through long-term bonds, backed by taxation of our homes, going through a private building corporation instead of issuing the bonds directly, circumvention of the constitutional debt cap, masking the true debt, bypassing taxpayer votes, converting our public assets to a private corporation. Once the building corporation takes the bond out, they own the school and the land for the next 20 to 40 years, not us. So I ask you, who exactly is on the building corporation board, and what are they being paid to issue these bonds? There's no oversight, no accountability, and these bonds are not audited by the State Board of Account. Mr. Loeffner, you refused to answer my questions about the building corporation via email. And Ms. Helton, our director of HR, refused to
Ma'am?
give me any...
You're not to use any names.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
That's-
Someone in your administrative staff refused to
you.
provide public records
I
to me, which is in direct violation of Indiana public records law. I think that you all have huge transparency issues. The superintendent or a member of this board right here mentioned on May 13th that a community task force came up with these ideas back in 2021. I think that's highly deceptive because the 2021 presentation clearly stated that the task force prioritized maximum utilization of existing structures to focus on academics. They never gave you the green light to go on a building spree, hand over everything to a private corporation, and leave us in more debt than we can possibly pay back at the $1.10 tax rate, which you admitted in your January work session. In summary, this bond is untimely. You admit you don't know current legislation and property assessments, how they will affect the funding. Your projections of student enrollment have been wrong. Enrollment is still down from 15 years ago, even after thousands of new homes have been built in Clark County. If Charlestown High School truly does reach capacity, which I doubt, then you can do what normal schools do and build temporary modular classroom extensions until you can afford to pay for them. It is a blatant lie that you need to move Parkview kids out before renovations. Have you ever heard of summer renovations, like my schools always did? This resolution needs to be voted down tonight. The public is educated. We will take it to a referendum and we will win.
Thank you. Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
First of all, having lived across,
Ma'am, could we?
I'm sorry, Sharon Neal.
Sharon Neal, and your
Yes.
address, please.
I apologize, sir.
You have to give your address.
7620 Old State Road 3, Otisco.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, first of all, having gone to Thomas Jefferson and Wilson right after it was built, and then North Haven right after it was built, I'm sorry, those schools do need to be replaced. So I am on that bandwagon of saying yes to that. However, what I would like to know, and I believe you said it before, but I couldn't find it, how much debt has been paid off for the last amount of bonds? Can anybody tell me tonight?
I don't believe that we're in a position to answer that.
Okay, so my concern is how much debt was paid off, and then also how quickly you can figure this will be taken care of. I'm at a loss for several things concerning this. I believe my area has been greatly unrepresented by the school board to answer this, because I'm looking at 2,500 kids currently enrolled in Charlestown. And for the young lady, Ms. Blessed, that said that's not up, it is. I mean, I've lived in Otisco for 40 years. I taught at Silver Creek. This is up, okay? This is up. My kids, I'm not gonna lie, and I know you said stick to topic, but this is extremely important to me, and hopefully to you, sir, Mr. Jones. I know no names, but it's positive, okay? I felt it very egregious when Franklin opened with a STEM classroom. I felt it very egregious when you had all these other elementary schools. Okay, now I'm being told, because I called and asked, that, and I know the teacher personally that's going to take over Charlestown Elementary. I understand that Pike's getting one. And then I was told that when Parkwood opens in 26, they're getting one. Okay, my concern is you got New Washington Elementary that doesn't have one, North Haven that doesn't have one, and Riverside that doesn't have one. I'm told they're very expensive, so I'd like to know, is any of this bond going to be used for that? All kids deserve the same. I'm not going to lie also, I took my 3 kids out of Greater Clark because of the things they could get at Silver Creek at that time. And I paid tuition for the oldest 2. The other one came up and it was dollars follow scholars time. So I want my grandson to stay in Greater Clark. I want to make sure he stays in Greater Clark. I'm raising him and I want him there. So I'm going to do whatever I can to help you guys make that happen, okay? And the last thing on that, sorry. Am I allowed to? Okay. Somebody and I had a conversation the other night about how the numbers on the school board do not represent necessarily the schools well. If you're looking at 2,500 kids in Charlestown and you have 1 school board member from Charlestown, is that okay? I mean, again, 2,500 kids, and you're projecting all these houses, which we see, my 40 years, that 62 has changed immensely with houses.
I get your point.
Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Neal. We appreciate your comments. Would there be anyone else? Yes. Yes, sir.
My name is John Croucher, 7115 Bethany Road, Charlestown, Indiana. And I was aware of this building corporation as part of the funding process. And I believe this fellow over here turned to the board and asked if there was any more questions. And Caitlin asked a question regarding it also. Is there anybody here from that board? Anyone? No one here to represent you guys or to speak on behalf of it? Is there anyone here that could give us more detail on who the board members are, when they have meetings, where they're held, what's discussed, are they open to the public? Does anybody have any answers regarding that? Is it all done in secret? How does it function? Anything?
That was before.
I mean, I believe those are legitimate questions considering they're the ones going to be spending our money. Anybody would like to answer those questions? Can you do that, sir? Would you do that, please? You asked these people, and Caitlin and myself both asked those questions.
I wanted to make one thing clear, because there's some language being used as if the buildings corporation is in charge of the project. They are not, and they're not in charge of the building after it's completed.
That was my point, is they're the ones that are spending the money, but these people are appropriating or requesting the funding.
These people are approving all the contracts, approving all of the amounts to be paid, and it goes to a trustee bank, which in this case is U.S. Bank Trust Company, and they pay it out of the construction fund. The building corporation itself does not have an active role. The building corporation members are paid nothing The building corporation grants to the school exclusive rights to use the building. The building corporation doesn't even have the right to enter the building. This is the structure that's been approved by the Indiana Supreme Court to finance these projects. This is nothing new.
Who pays you?
I get paid out of the bond issue eventually.
Who are these people and how are they picked?
They are picked generally by the school and asking people who would like to volunteer to be on the building corporation. Again, they get paid nothing. They have meetings when called. You can attend if you'd like. It's pretty boring. Because their whole point is to approve what the school has done. They make no selections. They don't pick the carpet. They don't pick what level of detail is done. These are things that are decided by the school board, your elected representatives, and they're the ones that approve the contracts. And then the finance department approves each distribution that comes out of those funds. The building corporation directors have nothing to do with that. It's all been assigned to the school to make the payment. They are there solely to be the funding mechanism that the Indiana Supreme Court has approved for construction of large projects.
They're segregated from these people, but they operate to
They operate
do exclusively for
independently
funding.
to do that. They operate exclusively as a funding mechanism, and all the rights, and the school's even required to maintain the insurance as part of the lease rental agreement, the same way they would and operate just as if somebody won the Powerball and decided to build a school.
All right, my question. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you're going to get paid eventually. What percentage of the building bond money will be paid to the company to agree to take this lease on?
Who owns the building if there's a default? The building corporation or Greater Clark County Schools?
The building corporation owns the school. If there's a default, since all construction contracts have been brought into and assigned to the school corporation, they would enforce it, the school corporation.
So why do you think they're issuing $218 million in these months?
Yeah, this is not what they.
No, we're not doing,
This is not what
we can't go back and forth like we're having coffee.
Well, that's not this is wrong.
All right. Any other questions?
Not questions, speakers.
Comments?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, I called on the lady first. Okay, well, I know.
Hi,
Hi.
I'm
Okay.
Christine Horsley,
Okay.
and I'm a resident of Clark County and have been my entire life. And I'm a neighbor. I live up here by Sharon Mill Smith, up on Mahan Road.
Okay.
My concern is that while the kids are in school, these facilities are going to be great, you know. And I don't know any of you all at all, other than I know your daughter. You know. But it's going to be great for them while they're at school. But if something in a time where inflation is horribly bad and people are really struggling out here to make it, if the rates have to be raised, I know our assessments are being raised, and I know that more money of our money is going into that 1.1%, which is funding, should be funding you all. I've worked with budgets in my job. That when the kids while they're at school, they're going to have nice facilities, nice chairs, nice classrooms, and all that. That's great. But on the flip side, when they go home, their families are going to be struggling to pay taxes. Parents might have to get a second job if these eventually cause the tax caps to raise. And it's going to create hardships at home. Families are going to have to decide, can we stay in our current home or Do we have to sell it and get something smaller? Can we afford the groceries this month? Or, you know, do we make soups or something and stretch it? You know, my concern is when the kids get home, that doing all this so quickly and having to pay all this money, which is going to be for great things, is going to cause an adverse effect to the kids at home. And for the taxpayers, a lot of them on fixed incomes, elderly, young individuals starting out, families trying to get a home. You know, property taxes go into your equity, or to your, you have to pay that into your mortgage and stuff. And how are they going to afford to do that? How are the elderly going to afford to continue paying for their homes if this stuff keeps raising? And I'm going to tell you, Clark County is extremely concerned right now after what we've just been through. And for all of us, transparency, fiscal integrability, that's all important to us. And that's not saying anything mean to any of you all, but for us as residents of Clark County, we are really concerned about what our tax dollars are being used for. And like I said, I'm all about doing great things for the kids, but at home, what's it doing to the kids? So that would be my comment, is it's great here, the schools, but what's it doing to the residents and the community, especially the kids at home? Okay?
I understand. Thank you so much. I appreciate your comment. Yes, sir.
Hello, my name is Zach Silverstein, 9603 Lena Bauer Road, Marysville, Indiana. Over the last couple months, I've dealt with the superintendent's office regarding multiple incidences, and they've dragged their feet every step of the way.
Sir, I'm sorry. You've got...
This is about his character and about the way you guys handle your business.
I'm sorry. No.
No,
we're not talking about character.
It goes to the credibility of the superintendent and the way he's handled himself.
You're done.
No, he trespassed me from public school property.
You're done.
Based off of fraudulent threats.
And now you're trespassing, sir. You're no longer allowed back in this building.
That's outrageous.
I'm sorry.
I can't even address the public. Come on, let's go.
It's a bond issue.
Father is a tyrant. Adios, your.
I apologize, folks.
You might want to clarify why he couldn't speak on Mr.
We were to sign up to speak about the bond issues and that relevance, so that's where we're at. You already...
May I ask one more question?
Certainly.
How many positions have been lost due to the unknown aspects of SB1? I know my grandson lost a teacher. Got the email.
I can't answer that.
And I'm very worried about the program.
Yeah, and I understand that. Thank you for your comment. I get it.
Do we know how many have been lost?
Ma'am, I don't to this, and really we're trying to talk about this other issue. I thank you. Anyone else like to speak pleasantly? Okay, hearing no one else liking to speak, we're going to close this hearing at this time and bring up the action items.
I've broken apart the points of the hearing into 5 resolutions. First, and you may do them separately one by one, or you may do them as a group of 5, whichever is your pleasure. The first is the 1028 project resolution, which defines the scope of the project and anticipating where it will be paid from, in this case, debt service fund. Second is preliminary determination resolution, which has the financial parameters for the financing. The third is a resolution authorizing an execution of an amendment to lease, which again will be the basis for which the financing will be paid. The fourth would be approving the issuance of bonds by the Greater Clark Building Corporation. This resolution basically makes it so the bonds will be tax exempt when they're issued, giving you an even lower interest rate. And the third is additional appropriation of the bond proceeds which technically, under Indiana law, you as a school are not required to do, but your bond counsel frequently wears both a belt and suspenders. And since the monies are shown from accounts that the school approves, I like to have an additional appropriation resolution, which just shows that you're authorizing that amount to be processed and spent by authorization of the school corporation. So again, 1028 project resolution, preliminary termination resolution, resolution authorizing execution of amendment to lease, resolution authorizing issue of bonds by Greater Clark Building Corporation, and the additional appropriation resolution.
Board, would I like to do all 5 at once?
Yes.
Okay, I move that we approve all 5, what was just presented.
I'll second that.
Do we have any questions or comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed and abstaining. Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, resolution for supplemental payments. Ms. Helton, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
Very good.
Great. The supplemental pay presented is to allow payment to the teachers listed for completing the duties listed in the attached document. Payments have been discussed with Samantha Pierce, GCEA President.
Okay, board, do I have a motion for the resolution for supplemental payments?
I'll make that motion.
Thank you, Ms. Mustaine. Do I have a second, please?
Second.
Thank you, Mr. Freeman. Any questions or comments from Ms. Hilton?
I have a question.
Sure.
Do they all come out of the same account?
They come from the account that they're being paid from unless it is something that the school has agreed to pay upon otherwise, and then it comes from the school accounts into our accounts.
Okay. Do we know which ones it were? Because I know like some of these are like very like specific school-sponsored events. Are any of those this case or?
So the concession workers are the school sponsored.
Okay.
For sure. Any of the other athletics, especially tournament times, things like that, are IHSAA sponsored, paid for. School gets the funds, and then the funds come to us.
Cool, thanks.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or comments? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor of the resolution for supplemental payments say aye. Aye. Opposed and abstaining.
Thank you.
Thank you. Textbook adoption 2025 through 2031.
Good evening, Board. As you know, literacy is my passion, and we are very excited. We have done an in-depth research, data analysis, and direct instructional observation, and we recommend the adoption of Amplify reading curriculum for grades K through 5. This decision has been informed by a comprehensive pilot program that we implemented in both 1st and 5th grades at North Haven and Utica Elementary for the entire year, as well as supplemental virtual exploration by a diverse group of educators across multiple schools in the district. We did our due diligence to ensure a well-rounded and informed decision that involves multiple debriefing sessions that we held with our teachers who participated in the pilot and the virtual exploration activities. We continued to provide and seek valuable feedback that helped us identify the strength of the program, including student engagement, instructional clarity and alignment, and literacy standards, as well as potential barriers for implementation. Teacher insights played a key role in the recommendation to move forward. So the Amplify program is grounded in the science of reading, and the key components include a skills unit, knowledge unit, language studio, digital resources, online intervention and assessment monitoring, and teacher support and professional development is also included in this. The cost of all components of the Amplify adopted materials are $2,075,632.70. This includes the Amplify Core Knowledge Language Arts. It includes the Language Studio, which is a companion to the CKLA for ELL students, professional development, and multiple embedded assessments, including M-Class Dibbles. This expense will be paid with materials and curriculum funding received by the state. Some portions will be offset with state formative state formative assessment grant funding as it becomes available and for which portions it is allowed.
Okay. Board, do I have a motion for the adoption of the Amplified Reading for K-5 beginning through the 2025-2026 school year?
I move we, Dell second.
Okay, Ms. Perkins and Ms. Hutchinson second. Any questions or comments for Dr. Hartley? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed and abstaining? Okey doke. Okay, bid award for food service.
Thank you, Mr. President. Bit of good news this evening. Every 5 years, the Department of Education Division of Student Nutrition requires school districts that utilize food service management companies to rebid for those services based on their bid specifications and their requirements. They put the outline of how that should work. We did have a great turnout, which is very nice for Greater Clark. There's several companies that do believe in Greater Clark, of which are Aramark, Chartwells, Whitson Culinary, and Organic Life. We had a committee that reviewed the submissions, and let me tell you, these are not just, we would like to do this, and we cook good food. They are submissions of this thick. And so there is a scoring matrix that all of the companies know what we're going to base our scores off of and how we weight that up to 100 points. The above scores are reflective of the scoring matrix that was included in the bid for each participant to know how our scoring was going to be utilized. After reviewing, the average scores are indicated in the results above. As you can see, there were several categories that were very close. However, the bottom line is that Aramark, our current provider, received the highest scores of 96.51 of 100. We're very pleased with the turnout and very pleased to submit to the Division of Student Nutrition these results. All information is being reviewed at the Department of Education, which most recently in the last day or two, they have completed that and agreed with all the submissions that we sent. So I do have that contract in hand. I will put it on consent agenda. It only requires the authorized representation, which is the CFO of the district, so you will be able to approve that contract through there. Aramark has done a fabulous job, as we know. Every year we do a renewal and a revisitation. Tonight we do have representation here clearly. They have done a fabulous job of making sure that our students, get the nutrition that they need, what they like, and invest back into our school district in your cafeterias. They have made a very distinct commitment to us, and they are a very valued partner. It speaks highly that these other three companies that came in, that they were able to surpass them. So this is a very big honor for me to recommend this to the board. I know that they're very pleased to stay with Greater Clark. We feel like family, as we've always talked about with our valued partners. So with that having been said, Mr. President, I am recommending that the Board of Trustees approve Aramark as our food service management company for the next 5 years.
Board, do I have a motion for the approval of Aramark for our food service company for the next 5 years?
I move we approve Aramark for the next 5 years.
Thank you, Ms. Hutchinson. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Ms. Mustaine. Any questions or comments? I would just like to say thank you to you all very much for really making that a really focused thing, a very healthy thing, and as well as helping to save us money. And it's a win-win. So thanks, and I'm glad you're still on our team. Any other comments?
I was just going to say, basically, about being on our team, we always talk about Greater Clark being a family and perfection and all these people that have been with us for a long time, helping our school corporation be the best. And I really appreciate you guys. You're the best, and I hope we keep recognizing that.
Okay, any other comments, suggestions? Okay, hearing none, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed and abstaining?
Thank you and congratulations.
Okay. Board comments at this time. Mr. Jones?
I want to say the graduations were amazing. I got to go to 2 out of 3. I had some graduation parties. Good luck to all the graduates. I know there were lots of monies, which I think Ms. Perkins is going to bring up. And so, yeah, I was super excited to see them starting out.
Yeah, congrats to all of our 2025 graduates. It was a privilege to be able to be in all of those ceremonies. I felt like they all were really well done, and it's just inspiring to see those kids and knowing that they're a future. So.
Ms. Mustaine?
Nothing tonight.
Okay. Mr. Freeman?
Ditto.
Ms. Perkins?
Well, I too went to the 3 graduations, and I'd like to thank the parents and the caregivers for the kids, because they were so well behaved, and they recognized the fact that this was a serious situation. The parents and the caregivers and the students and the teachers and all of them that showed up to celebrate this occasion. And what she was getting ready to say, what she was talking about, is our graduating seniors. I don't think our community understands how hard they work and the accolades that they can get if they work hard enough, i.e. scholarships. And it seems like every single year, our seniors get more and more value in scholarships. And I believe I've already forgotten the number you told me, but I think 12 million? Over 12 million. In scholarships for this group of 2025 graduates. That's pretty darn good. Yeah, and that's actual. I want to make sure people understand this. There's 2 ways to report your scholarship amounts. You can report it as, this is the amount of money our kids have accepted, 12 million, over 12 million. Or, be careful, you can say, this is all the money that was offered to the kids. So if I got 5 scholarships, all 5 of those, although I'm only going to take 1, and I know for a fact we have one young man that got millions in offers of scholarships. So thank you for coming tonight.
I want to thank everybody that spoke. I know it's a difficult thing. I get it. I came down here from Indianapolis in 1984, and I taught at Jeffersonville High School for 7 years. It was my first teaching position. I taught in 5 different schools in Greater Clark, one of which is torn down now. I can tell you that there were maintenance issues then that we never did anything with. I mean, there was water on a Jeff High roof that was coming down into a 3-phase 480 amp panel in a wood shop class. We never fixed it. We never addressed it. We never spent any money. And I get not spending money, but this is a generational thing, people. It's a generational thing. It's not going to have to go on ever again. I'm sorry that we have to be the generation that does pay for a substantial amount of it. But I promise you, it is not just fun saying, hey, I want to just spend money to spend money. And I get what you're saying, but that's not what this board's about. That is not what this board's about. It's about necessity. And I understand, to your point about, kids having a nice school and maybe they struggle with parent things at home. I get that. There's a lot to that. And I know both my parents worked 2 jobs. I came home and fixed what we had for 6 siblings. And I get it. I think that what we have done, we've done conservatively, and I do believe that we have overestimated we've made it worst case scenario for everything as far as paying things back. And, I guess what bothers me are some of the malicious communication that goes on. And there's a lot of people that say a lot of things, but they're incorrect. But they put things out there that are incorrect. The DOE website has things on it that are incorrect. I've worked off the DOE website. I know. So I appreciate what you're saying. I just feel like I've got grandkids here, and I know a lot of you do too. People that spoke here tonight, they chose to send their kids to other schools. And I get that. That's school choice. You can do that. But I still believe in Greater Clark County schools, and I believe that we're doing the right thing for Greater Clark County schools. So, I'm not going to apologize for that. I hope that we see in a few years that was the right thing to do. That's all I have.
All right. Well, first, I also want to thank our 3 high school principals for 3 great graduations, and also let you know that, once again, we anticipate our graduation rate being in the upper 90s, somewhere around 96, 97%. And our counselors, teachers at the high school level, principals have worked really hard to maintain that and keep it up there. And it certainly speaks to our academy model. I do want to say, I want to thank the people that came and spoke also. I do want to say that, unfortunately, this is not a question and answer forum or format. This is a school board meeting, so it's a business meeting. That's what we ran here tonight, is a business meeting, and have to stick to that format. But I do want to address or clarify a couple things that I heard speakers say. I think, number one, when you go back to the facility planning that we did 5-6 years ago, we were very forthcoming about what the amount could be in terms of things that needed to be done. Now, that's trended a little higher because of inflation, in terms of what things ended up costing because of COVID or whatever reason. Now, because of tariff increases, things of that nature. I will tell you, we haven't deviated from that plan, and each year, we stated 5 years ago that we would add a year each year, so it'd be a rolling 5-year plan, and we've stuck with that. Now, this project at Charlestown High School is one of the last big projects that we're going to do or need to do as a district. We get this done, we'll be good for many years in terms of capacity. And that's why we're trying to move forward with it, so that we can get it approved, start planning, get the designs done, and those things. I will also address the fact that we have not negatively impacted the taxpayer in terms of these projects. We don't control assessed value, whether that goes up or doesn't go up. That's a state formula that controls that. We don't have any say in whether or not somebody's assessed value goes up or down. Okay. Now, we've obviously met with Stiefel on numerous occasions over the last 5-6 years, and also Policy Analytics, to try to project out where it is going to go so that we can do these projects without negatively impacting the taxpayer, which we've done. So I think we've followed through on our promise over the last 5-6 years with what we're doing. I think, going back to a couple comments about our January work session, I believe my comments at that January work session is, we don't currently know what the impact of Governor Braun and the state legislators' property tax reform proposal is going to be. I believe that's what I said in January. We still are working on figuring out what that impact is going to be in terms of Senate Bill 1 now that it's in law. I'm not even sure a legislature could tell you what the true impact of that's going to be, because it was a, 380-page bill, I believe is what it was, something like that. So that's what I stated in January, is that based on what Governor Braun's proposal is, or the state legislature's proposal, it could impact our tax rate. And that's just being honest, in terms of what I said in January at the work session. And the issue with transparency, I think we're one of the most transparent districts in the state. I think if you look around at the other websites of the other school districts in this area, you will see that we have more information on our website than any school district in this area, in terms of contracts on board docs, minutes on board docs, videos being recorded and loaded to our YouTube channel. I challenge anybody to go look at the other school districts in this area, see what you can find, and then come back and look at ours. Because I know what New Albany Floyd posts on their website. I know what Silver Creek posts on their website. I know what Clarksville posts on their website. Okay, I know what Scott County 1, Scott County 2, Salem posts on their website. It's nowhere near the information that we post on our website as far as transparency. Not even close. Okay, and lastly, everyone has a right to their opinion, to be opposed to a project and do what they're going to do. But I would ask you to think about this. What's the opportunity cost of doing this project right now and not doing this project right now? I will tell you that many of the projects that we've done or taken on the last 5 years, frankly, should have been done 10 years ago. Okay, I've been in this district 21 years. Mr. Buckwalter just spoke to it. That this district, under previous leadership, previous boards, then this one up here, deferred way too much maintenance, didn't address the buildings, didn't invest in the buildings. And there are things that we're doing now that should have been done 10 years ago. So what was the opportunity cost of not doing those things 10 years ago? Okay, I'll tell you what it was. Because those projects weren't done 10 years ago, it's costing this district an extra $10, $15, $20 million more to do those projects now than what it would have been 10 years ago. And that's what we're facing with this Charlestown project. It's fine if you want to fight it, you want to stop it, you want to push it off. At some point, there's going to need to be classrooms at Charlestown High School because the growth is going to happen out there. Okay, you're lying to yourself if you don't see that. Just drive around out there for about 2 hours and look around. So at some point in the next 3 or 4 years, 4 or 5 years, there's going to be a need for extra classroom at Charlestown High School. The district can either do it now or it can be done in 4, 5, 6 years ago. But once again, what is the opportunity cost of that? If we could do it now, I guarantee you it's going to be a lot cheaper to do it now than it is in 5, 6, 7 years. There's no doubt in my mind, based on what I've seen the last 3 or 4 years, with how much things are increasing in terms of cost. Okay, so that's the choice. That's the reason we're doing what we're doing here. We're trying to get these things done before they end up costing way more money down the road. And we can say or come up with every rhyme or reason for not doing these things, but they're going to need to be done. And if we keep pushing it off, we're going to run into the same thing. It's going to be millions and millions and millions of dollars more in the future than what it costs today. And I have at least 5 people sitting over here that have worked with us as vendors that can speak to that. That 3 years ago when we started Pike Elementary, we thought it was going to be around $40 million. Okay, well, it was a lot more than that, to the tune of $15 or $20 million more because of inflation, because of what has happened over the last 5 years. And that's nobody's fault, it happened. I mean, inflation, that's what happened. So, I would ask you to look at what's the opportunity cost of doing this project and what's the opportunity cost of not doing this project. Okay, because there is a cost both ways, and it's a significant cost both ways. That's all I have to say.
Okay. Anyone else, board? I need a motion.
I'll move we adjourn.
Second?
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.